Today we're going to create a cabinet with drawers and glass doors. First, make sure you name correctly your project. So in this case, it will be cabinet and then first name, last name, and then hit save. I'm going to add a plane so I can use an image as a reference. So first thing, go ahead and click plane. Name the plane reference. Next, we're going to change the size of the plane. So let's go ahead and click on transform to expand it and change scale X to 4, scale Z to 5. And then let's go ahead and rotate X to 90. So rotation X, change that to 90. Using the move tool, move the plane on top of the grid. Now we're going to add an image to the plane by applying a material to the plane. Make sure you download the image that you're going to use as a reference. Let's go to the Explorer tab. And now let's go ahead and create a new material. Right click Material Library, select New, and then Standard. Name the material reference. Now add the image to the Explorer. Just drag it on top of the Explorer. And it will automatically place it below the material library section. As you can see, cabinet with drawers and glass door. Now let's apply that image to the reference. Make sure reference material is still selected. And then under diffuse, select image and make sure you select cabinet with drawers and glass. Now let's apply that to the plane by dragging the reference material on top of the plane. And there you can see the image was applied to the plane, and now we are ready to use it as a reference. Let's move the plane back by changing translation Z to -20. So click on the plane, go to properties and translation Z. Let's change that to -20 to move it back. Now we're going to create a box to start modeling the cabinet. So go ahead and click on the box, name it cabinet. Change scale X to 7, scale Y to 12, and scale Z to 5. Now we need to change the depth, width, and height segments. So let's click on Polymesh to expand it, and depth will be 3, width will be 5, and then height segments will be 9. Now it's supposed to be adding edges as we make these changes here. If it's not doing it on yours, it's because under realistic, we need to select show edges. And there, now we can see our edges. Place the cabinet on top of the grid. So using the move tool, make sure you move it on top. Let's add an opacity to our cabinet so we can see the reference of the cabinet in the back. So we can see the image in the back. At this moment, if I zoom in, I cannot see through it. Let's right click on material, select new and standard. And let's go ahead and name this new material opacity. Let's change the opacity factor to 0.7. And then let's apply the opacity material by dragging it and dropping it on top of the cabinet. So from here, we're just dragging it and drop it on top. And as you can see now, we can see through the cabinet and we can see the image that we have as a reference in the back. Now we are ready to start moving the edges around so we can design our cabinet. Let's start by switching to front view. Now that we are in front view, we're going to arrange our edges. So let's go ahead and switch to tools, click edge. If nothing is being selected, it's because we don't have our object selected. So make sure you select your object, in this case the cabinet. Select edges, and then what we want to do is we want to move this edge a little bit closer to the edge so we can create the legs of the cabinet later on. So let's go ahead and double click on one of the edges to select all the way around. Hold Control key, and then let's double click on this side as well, and that will select all the way around. I'm going to switch to the scale tool, and I'm just going to drag out so I can move both edges or edge loops at the same time. And just, once you're satisfied with the width of each on each side, then stop dragging, and let's do the same thing for the ones in the middle. So let's just double click to select one, and then hold down Control key, double click again, and then just push in. And again, once you're satisfied with the width, you let go. And again, I'm trying to create all the dividers that the cabinet has. I'm going to continue rearranging the edge loops. I'm going to double click on this one here, hold Control key, double click on this one here, and just drag up to create my border on the top and my border or divider on top and bottom. Okay, once I'm satisfied, I'm moving on to the next one, and I'll do the same thing. I'll double click on this one, and this time I'm going to use the move tool. So I'll bring this one down. There it is. So this will be for my bottom drawer. Now I'll do the same thing for this one. Double click, bring it down. This will be for my middle drawer, and then I'll do the same thing for this one. Double click it, bring it down, and you might have to rearrange them. So for example, if this is if there's not enough space on the top, then I'm going to move them down a little bit more. So double click and then hold Control key to double click on the next one. I bring this one down, double click, bring this one down, and then same thing on this one. Double click while holding Control key, and then bring it down. Remember, these two drawers are a little bit smaller, and there it is. Now we need to remove these edges here that we don't need, here and here. So the best way to do that, or to select them, would be to place your mouse to the left or to the right, click hold, and then just drag across to select the front and the back. And then same thing here, hold down Control key, click and drag across. And we don't need these two, we could just do that as well. Same thing here. And then even these ones, we don't need them. So this will make sure that we're selecting the front and the back edges. And then all we do is click remove here. And that's it, they're gone. So if we go into perspective view, we can see that those edges are actually gone. And now we have the faces that we will be using to extrude, so we can create the space for the drawers. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then for the glass doors here on the top. So as you can see, if we rotate, we need to move these two lines as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch views. I'll go to left view. If this view is not available on yours, just click here and then choose your desired view from here, from the list. So I'll select left and I'll do the same thing. Double click, hold Control key, double click, and using the scale button or scale tool, sorry, I'll just move them out. And there it is. I'll switch back to perspective view. And now I'll create the legs. So I'm going to rotate so I can see the bottom of the cabinet. So I'll switch to face mode and I'll select the 4 corner faces. Once I have selected them, I'm going to use the extrude button here. Click it once to extrude it. I'll rotate. If the legs are too long, then you can always switch to the move tool and then just bring them up. There we go. Click outside to deselect. I'll switch to object mode and bring it on top of the grid. So there, as you can see, it's taking shape. Now we are going to extrude the faces where the drawers and the doors will go. Let's start by selecting the faces. So let's switch to face mode and let's select all the faces. I'm going to select the selection tool. It's easier. So again, select the first face, hold Control key, select the other faces while holding the Control key. And then just make sure nothing else is selected by mistake, only the faces that you will need to extrude. Now click the extrude button. And as you can see, it extrudes out. So we need to push them in. So again, select the move tool and then push it in. And you might have to switch views to see how far you're pushing the faces. So for example, here I'm still looking at the left. So I'll go to left view and I can just keep pushing in. And this is actually the faces right here. You can see them move as I push them in. And I'm just going to align them with this edge right here. Like so. Once I have them where I want them, I'll just switch to perspective view so I can see the space. And there you go. So now I have the space for the drawers and the doors. Now I'm going to create the top of the drawer here. As you can see, it has like a little ledge. So I'll rotate. I'll start by selecting one of the faces on the top, and then I'll switch to my selection tool again, and then hold Control key and then just select all the faces on the top. And rotate it, make sure nothing else got selected, and go ahead and press extrude. With the move tool, bring it down. And we just need a little bit extruded, as you can see here. So this should be fine. Now I'm going to select the side faces for that extrusion. So I'll click on one and then start selecting the other ones by holding Control key as you click on the other edges. And we're just selecting the ones all the way around. Don't select anything else. So be careful as you're clicking each of the faces. And then just rotate it, make sure nothing else got selected. And go ahead and press extrude. And then using the scale tool, we can use the sphere, just drag it out. And it's just a little bit, just so we can give it some, like the little ledge here, the border here around the cabinet, and that should be fine. So far it looks something like this. Now I'm going to create the three dividers that go inside here where the door glasses are going to be. So I'll start by creating a box. Move it up and away from the cabinet. I'm going to change the size by going to transform and then changing scale X to 6 and then scale Y to 0.25 and scale Z to 4. And then I'm just going to push it in, move it on top. And again, you might have to switch to the other view so you can see if it's actually going in and how far are you moving it. So I'm going to switch to left. So here is the piece, and let's see. That should be fine right here. I guess this is the edge. I can just align it to this edge right here. But then it will be kind of hanging here. So let's see, I'll move it here and then I'll change scale Z to maybe, let's see, once it touches both there, that should be fine. You can see that it touched here and it touched here. So 4.15. So it just depends on your cabinet. Now I'm going to switch to perspective view to see how that looks. And there it is. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to clone this divider a couple times so I can have 3 divisions just like in here. So I'll right click on it, go to clone and click OK. Copy is fine, click OK, move it up, clone this one, right click, clone, copy is fine, click OK, move it up. But I'm running into a problem here. As you can see, the space is not enough. So I need to resize it. Make sure you select first the cabinet. So let's go to object mode, select the cabinet, and then select face mode. And let's go to front view. And then I'll just create a rectangle around the faces that I want to select, which are this one here. As you can see, they got selected. I'm going to switch to perspective view. Make sure nothing else got selected. And let's see, rotating all the way around. Top, nothing else. But I also need to select these two here. So hold Control key, hold click, and nothing else. Now I can just drag up using the move tool as much as I need. Once I'm done, click outside and then switch to object mode and start moving the dividers. You can switch back to front view and then just from there start moving them. Looks like I need a little bit more, so I'll do the same thing. Make sure you click on the actual cabinet, select face, back to front view, select those faces, back to perspective, select the top inside faces, make sure nothing else, move up a little bit, switch to object mode, start selecting the dividers and adjusting the spacing. And let's see, that looks fine. We got plenty of room in between, so that should be fine. Switch to perspective. There you go. Right, there it is. Now we're going to create the drawers for the cabinet. So let's create a new box first. Move it away, bring it up. I'll change scale X to 5.65, Y to 1.71, and Z to 4. And again, these numbers and yours might vary a little bit just because, remember, I kind of move these edges manually, so I kind of eyeball the spacing that I wanted. So I still need to probably change the scale. Make sure you select the drawer, push it in, and let's go into perspective, and let's go into front view to see how that looks. Okay, so it needs to go here, so I'll bring it down, zoom in a little bit. So as you can see, there's space here, there's openings that needs to be filled. Now I'll go to left as well to see. So I'll push it in. And there's a lot of room that needs to be filled here as well. So this is what I was talking about. I need to keep changing the size. So let's see, 4.5. See, that made it a little bit bigger. And I'll just leave the drawer a little bit out. Now I'll switch to front view to fix that as well. You can see that there's room here and here. So I'm changing here X. Let's see. Once I see that both edges are touching, I'll stop. So for me, it's 5.87. We can see here as well. So I'm changing Y. So that should be fine. So again, these settings will change them again manually, just so you can see that everything fits perfectly. So I'll go back to perspective view and I'll zoom in to see how that looks. And there it is. That should be fine. So I'll just drag it out again, just because I need to create the inside of the drawer. So I'll switch to face mode, select the top face, and then press extrude. And I'm going to select the scale tool first because I want to create a border for the drawer. So I'll grab the sphere and drag out a little bit. That should be enough for the border. Now I'll switch to the move tool, bring it down, and I'll switch to front view so I can see how far I'm bringing it down. So it needs to touch this line right here, so I'll bring it down. There it is. Switch to perspective view, and then you can see that there it is, and then we have that nice border there as well. You can see that it's nice and flat. Okay, once we have that, then we'll press extrude one more time, and this time we'll just bring it down. And again, you can switch to front view so you can see how far down you want to drag it, to drag that face. So that should be fine right there. So I'll switch back to perspective view, and there it is. I'll push it back in. I'll switch to object mode. And then just leave it out slightly, a little bit, slightly out. Now I'm going to create the handles. For the handles, I'll keep it simple. I'll just create two spheres. So I'll select the sphere, bring it up, switch to front view, resize it using the scale tool, position it where I'll need it. So there should be fine. And then I can just clone it. I can just duplicate it. So right click, clone, copy is fine, click OK, and then just bring it to the other side. That should be, let's see. Yeah, that should be fine. Make sure you select both of them. And let's go into side view. And I'll just move in so that they're barely touching the drawer. Let's see, I'm going back to perspective view, and that looks good. All right, so now I'm going to group the drawer with the two spheres just to make it easy for me when I clone the drawer. So I'll go to edit, group, so I'm grouping it, and then model. If I go to Explorer, then I can see that that's my group right here. I can change the name of the group just so I can later identify which group is what. So this one I'll just go drawer bottom. Okay, now I'm going to clone it. So I'm going to right click on the group and select clone hierarchy. Make sure you select clone hierarchy. Clone won't work. That will just give you an empty group. So make sure it's clone hierarchy. And there it is, drawer bottom one. So I'll switch the name to drawer middle. And then using the move tool, I can bring it up. And again, you will have to resize it. So let's switch to front view. Move it down or up so we can see that there's a lot of space here that is needed to be filled. I'm going to select just a box, and instead of using the scale, I'm going to use vertices. So I'll switch back to tools, vertex, and then I'll draw a box around the bottom vertex, and then hold Control key and select the top ones. And then using the scale tool, I'll resize it. Because if we use it here, it won't work. If we try to change, for example, scale Y, it just create a mess because we already extruded, and that creates different faces, different edges, vertices. So it's just a mess. All right, so just keep moving it until you're satisfied. I'll switch back to my move tool, move it up a little bit, and let me go to perspective view just to see how that looks. And I think that looks really good. So I'll just leave it like that. Switch to object mode, and you select the cabinet so it'll be easier to rotate it. All right, so there it is. Now I'm going to create the two small drawers. So I'll select a box again, move out of the way, put it on top, and then I can just start resizing it manually. So in this case, I'll just go to front view, move the box where I need it to be, and then using the scale tool, I'll scale that. Press F to zoom in, move tool, center it, and then scale to again, then resize. That should be fine. Same thing on the top. Move tool so I can center it, and then scale. I move it a little bit more down, and then scale just slightly. That should be fine. And then I'll move to, let's see, left. Press F to zoom in on it. And using the move tool first, I'll just get closer to where that cabinet is. So it'll be somewhere in here. So put it there, right in the middle. Go back to scale tool and then resize it. Move tool. Scale a little bit more. Okay, so let's see, that should be fine. Let's go back to perspective view and see how that looks. Yeah, that should be fine. I'm going to drag it out of there so I can create the top just like we did before. So select face, select the top. Once the top is selected, you're going to click extrude. And again, we switch to scale, grab the sphere, push in to create the border around it. And then with the move tool, bring it down. I'll switch to front view just to make sure it's right on the top edge. Let's see. Yep, that looks good. And then I'm going to press extrude one more time and then just push it in. And again, just go back to front view so you can see how far down you're going to push it in. And that should be fine. Going to switch to object mode, and then from left I'll push it back in, and I can just clone this one of these spheres. So I'll go to Explorer, and let's see, I can just clone sphere 2 here, right click, clone, copy is fine, click OK. And instead of leaving it inside that group, I'll just bring it out. So I'll put it here on objects. There we go. So now it's outside. Now I can move that without a problem. Put it, just move it straight up and put it right there where the drawer is. And let's see, go to perspective view. All right, so it's on the wrong side. I gotta move it to the right. So I'm switching to front view and then just dragging it to the right. Make sure it's kind of center there. Perspective view. Yep, that's fine. And I'll group them both. So I'll select that and the sphere. And group, edit group width, and then model. And I'll just name this group drawer right. Now I'll duplicate it by right clicking and selecting clone hierarchy. And then instead of drawer right 1, I'll make it drawer left. And make sure drawer left is selected as a group, and then just move it to the left. And I'll switch to front view so I can align it correctly. There it is. Switch back to perspective view. There. All right, we have our drawers completed. Now we're going to create the glass doors. start by creating a box. Move it out, put it on top. And I'm just going to manually adjust it as well. So I'll switch to front view, press F to zoom in on the box, zoom out, put it somewhere in the center, and then using the scale to start scaling it, resizing it. Move it up a little bit. I need to scale it slightly up. Okay, there it is. You can also switch, if I go to tools, switch to vertex. If I need to only move a side more up, there it is. So it's actually touching. Okay, switch back to object mode, select scale, and let's see. So this side is touching, this side is not. So I'll do the same thing, select vertex, select this side, and using the move tool, let me zoom in. Then I'll just drag it. So now it's touching, now we're good. Now I'm switching back to perspective view and switch to object, switch to scale, and then just make it a little bit thinner. Like that should be fine. All right, now I need to create a border for this door. So I'll select face mode, select both sides, front and back. Remember, hold Control key as you select the other side. And then just click Extrude. And then using the scale tool, grab the circle, push out, and there it is. We have our border for the door, so that should be fine. Now, this door will need a multi-ID material. So I'm just going to go ahead and create that right now. So I have the two faces selected where the glass will be. So I'm going to scroll down here, set a material ID to 1, and then click set ID. So 1 and then set ID. So you can see now we have materials 0 and 1 IDs. All right. So now I'm going to duplicate it, switch to object mode. I'll put it in place first. So I'll push it back in. Nope, it's too small. So again, this is an easy fix. I'll switch back to front view. And what I can do is switch to vertex and then select these vertices here. So I'm making a box around it. And then I could just bring it down and make sure it touches. There it is. Switch back. And there it is. Make sure I switch back to object mode. And I need to push it in a little bit more. That should be fine. We just see a little bit out. That's fine. I can duplicate this, clone it. So right click, clone, copy is fine, click OK. Move it to the left, but let me go into front view so I can see that it's exactly where I want it. Okay, there you go. So now we just need to start applying color. So different things. All right. So first I need to remove the opacity from the main cabinet. So I'll go and click the cabinet and scroll down to materials here under properties. And for the opacity, I'm just going to press on the X to remove the opacity. And there it is. All right. Now I'm going to do the doors first so you can see how that's created. So I'll click Explorer. I'm going to click on the chevron so I can close or close the groups. All right, so let's see. So I'm here on material. I'm going to create a multi-ID first. So I'll right click new, multi-ID, and I'll name this glass doors. Now, since I created a material ID 1, I'm going to set that to opacity. See, remember that? The original opacity we created so we could see through. So there it is. And then I'll pick a color here. Let's see. Like a light brown, something like that. And I'll copy this code. Control C so I can use it later. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of the doors. And again, I could have just renamed those just to make it easier to identify. So this would be door right, and this one door left. So once you have one of the doors selected under properties, you go to materials and select glass door. And then you can see that it applies the color to the border, and then you can see transparency. You can see through the door, so that's the glass. So we'll do the same thing for the other door. You select it, under materials, you go and select glass door. Okay, so let's see. For this one, I guess I cloned it before, so I'll just delete that and then just clone this one. Right click, clone, copy, and then just move it to the right. Make sure it's perfectly aligned. That should be fine. Again, so if you can see, it has that glass door there. And I could just rename it door right. Right, there you go. Now for the main cabinet, I can create a new material. So I'll go right click new, name it standard, name it cabinet. And since I copy the color, I'll just paste it, Control V, so I can use the same color. Then once I have that, I can just drag the cabinet color on top of the cabinet, and there it is. Now I'm going to color the drawers and the dividers. Since I'm using the same color, I'll just use the cabinet for the drawers as well. So I'll expand here and click on box, and then right here just select cabinet, so it will apply the same color. Same thing to the spheres. And if I deselect, then you can see. I'll do the next one. So cabinet, cabinet, the next one. And the next one. Now I need to do the dividers inside as well. So box 1, 2, and regular box. And I'll use the same color for everything. You can choose a different color if you like. And there it is, the completed cabinet. I'll go to realistic and remove show edges so you can see how it looks.